In this episode of Building Microservices to Go, we're going to complete our refactoring. We're going to look at how we can refactor our HTTP handlers to take into account our new data objects. And we're going to just go through and finish up that tidy up. This is all going to lead to the ability for us to kind of start implementing that bidirectional streaming, which we're going to see in the next episode. So let's begin. So let's dig into here. So this is our get handler for our HTTP handler. And this has a couple of different methods. Again, I'll put a link to the video up there. Is that right? For when we built out this RESTful API. But we're just going to kind of make some simple changes to this. So the first thing is that we notice is that, well, get product by ID is no longer a function on the data package. It's actually an object now. So we need to refactor that. So the first thing that we are going to refactor is in our main sort of handler function. So in new product, we pass in the logger, and we're using the old-fashioned logger, and we'll refactor that as well. The data validation and the Proto's currency client. So we need to change the signature on this. And the reason we need to change the signature on this is that we don't need this currency client anymore because the functionality that's handled in there is in our product DB. So product DB, and that is going to be data.products DB, and that's a reference. The logger that I'm using, I'm not using the logger from the standard package anymore because I want to be able to refactor away all of that kind of manual stuff. So I'm going to use the same thing. I'm going to use hclog. There's a number of different structured loggers out there, and please feel free to sort of choose whichever one you prefer. I'm ever so slightly biased by using hclog. It does the job for me, and I think it's a nice and simple logger. So it doesn't have too much complexity. It's nice and lightweight, and the interfaces and the sort of the separation is really, really sensible. So I like it, and I'm going to continue using it. So again, refactoring hclog.logger. It's no longer a reference because logger is interface. That can stay the same. And then we're going to change our products DB, which is data.product DB. And when we come to testing, we will kind of see that we're going to kind of change the way that a lot of this stuff works, because we're introducing concrete types here with both validation and with products DB. We don't want to be doing that when we start getting into testing scenarios, because we don't want to be running through the actual classes here. We're not testing the code inside of validation or product DB. We're testing our logic inside of this handler. So we'll replace those with interfaces, and we'll see how that's possible at a later date. But for now, let me just change those. Oops, and that there is an interface. Okay. So now I think everything looks good there. We can now refactor the get handler. So we're going to have to go through and we're going to have to do a reasonable bit of refactoring here. But so we're doing obviously the logger.print line, and we've got that debug statement. But we're going to change that because hclog automatically adds that stuff for me. So I can just change that much simpler. Get all products. And then again, so data.getProducts. GetProducts is no longer there. GetProducts is now on products DB, and I need the currency. So let me just put that in there for a moment, and we'll kind of come back to this once we've gone through and refactored out all of this and made it compiling again. And that of course returns an error as well. Whoops. So let me just quickly factor in there. going to say, if the error is not nil, then what we want to do is we want to return the internal status error, something like that. And we're making this is a RESTful service. So we're returning JSON objects with our error message. We've got this generic error object type. So that there, and then that's going to be return. Okay. Oh gosh, all the things. All right. So next, what we're doing, then what we're going to do is we are converting our products, which we return back, into a JSON data structure, and we're checking error. If we get an error, then yeah, we want to log it. So we can again change the type on that. And we're going to put the error message, serialize the products. hclog allows me to have these kind of additional fields, which is why I'm kind of setting this out like this. And yeah, so we should never be there because this data structure should always, but you never know. There might be a reason why we can't do that. All right, next thing down. All we should really have to do is kind of, for most of this stuff, is just going to be kind of refactoring out that logger. And I do apologize. It is incredibly tedious stuff. But, well, not all programming is exciting. And sometimes you've just got to kind of get through all of this. And as I said, I'm kind of putting this in because I didn't want to do just a kind of a big refactor off stream. And then when you start to come back to it and you're like, hey, why is all this code changed? Well, now there's a reference. The code has changed because it wasn't really up to scratch and it was time to do a bit of a tidy up. So anyway, here we are. Is the exchange rate correctly computed? So that's cleaning up our code a little bit. It's, you know, we're back onto kind of single responsibility. The single responsibility of the get handler is to retrieve data, format it to JSON, and print it back to the user. Okay, so that's the get handler done. We're going to have to just quickly go through and replace all of these logging statements here. This is completely my fault because I let this logger go on for too long. And in fact, I probably should never have used this logger in the first place because in production, I would never use it. My rationale was that I was trying to make it easy for you. And I made it easy for you. Now I've got to bore you to death by watching you watching me refactor all of this garbage away. Well, there's a lesson learned. It's absolutely worth spending the time getting good logging inside of your applications and systems, because especially when you start to deal with distributed systems, it can be really, really difficult to kind of understand what's going on. Being able to have traceability in terms of being able to look at logs when you can't actually directly inspect the inside of an application is really, really cool. To be fair, there's been a lot of advances in remote debugging recently. It's absolutely possible now to attach a local debugger to an application running inside of a Kubernetes pod, for example. And we're going to look at that when I do finally get around to debugging. But regardless of whether you're going to debug your services by step debugging, which isn't actually always that easy in a live process, but you still want good logging. So it's worth spending the time. Don't be afraid to get it wrong and to change it. It's all just a progression. I think in a lot of cases, one of the approaches that I like to take is I don't want to dwell too much on sort of overthinking design. I like to think about design and I like to test it, but I'm not afraid to go back and refactor. And I think that's a kind of a key thing. I've never been particularly a great sort of fan of sitting down for weeks and weeks on end and kind of just hacking away to create these beautiful design documents, because I think quite often you want something to evolve a little bit more naturally. I think things progress a lot faster that way, and I think you end up with a better overall solution. So don't not up front think about things, but don't spend too much time on it. Don't be afraid to write some code and make some changes later on. So we're literally on to the last leg. So the thing that we're doing now is we are creating our new products, which is our database, and complaining about it, saying I can't use cc type currency.currency client as data product DB. Yeah, well, that's correct. So in our, where are we creating the product DB in here? Well, we're not, because we had products DB as functions before. So we were using package functions. So let's create the products DB. And that's going to be data.new products ID. We're going to pass it the currency client and our logger. Our logger here is not going to be the standard logger that we're using. We are going to use the hclog. So it's going to be hclog dot default logger, like that. And where's our products DB? Our handler is now going to take an instance of DB. And down here, okay, we're not using that anymore. So we're going to do log.info. This is going to be our log.error. Final leg. It's nearly there. Okay, and lastly, well, yeah, I was going to say I'd be amazed if that worked. The error log. So hclogger. So error log requires a log.standard logger. What we have now is an instance of hclog. hclog we can convert to standard logger. There is a function here, and we can specify the standard logger and the options. So I'm just going to do the default options because they are fine. Okay. And our application is running. This is the exciting bit. So let's go to product API. And I'm going to do curl localhost 9090. And we're going to do products. Let's just pipe that in JQ. Okay, so this is good. So we've kind of piped that into JQ. This is our baseline. Okay, these are our kind of raw prices. We're not doing any conversion on that at the moment. So how do we do the conversion? So what we need to do is we need to kind of do some modifications in order to be able to get the currency. So what is the currency going to look like? Well, the currency is going to look well, pretty straightforward. But what we want to do is we want to get that from the query string. So at the moment, I want to be able to do that. I want to be able to do something like currency equals US dollars. So rather than my base currency, which is euros, I want to be able to return these prices in US dollars. So let's just take a look at where we're going to get that information from. So the thing that we can do is we can go to, where is the regex? Come here, regex. I've got a regex on my clipboard somewhere. I'm not going to be doing this stuff manually. That would be crazy. There we go. All right. Let's scroll back. Oh, on the right window. So here we're getting the products. So we're handling the products, and this is going to get us our product, but with the ID. So what we can do is we can add a method onto here. And the method that we can add is also going to give us the capability of doing this with a query. So we have a base list all, but we can add a new endpoint, which also has a query. And the query string, again, I can use the Gorilla framework. The name of it is going to be currency, and it's going to conform to this regular expression. So the regular expression there is saying it's going to be in uppercase between A and Z and 3. So that is kind of how I'm using my currency codes there. If we look, we've got these 3-letter currency codes. So I can set that up like that. I can do exactly the same thing here for my product list. So the one with the ID, exactly the same thing, list single, but I'm just adding this query, which is giving this this additional parameter. So now when I kind of want to call over in my get function, what I can do is I can fetch that currency. So let's have a look at how we would do that. So what we do is we kind of, where are we? There we go. We've got this get product ID. So get product ID, what that does is that returns us the kind of the product ID from the request. Right. Gosh, it's getting confusing. I'm confusing myself. But what I can also do is I can get the query string, and I'm just going to use pure Go to be able to do that. And I'm just going to use url.query get currency. Now, if currency doesn't exist, that's fine. But if currency does exist, because I've defined that root here, I know that it's going to be in the right format, which is great. So now when I call get product ID, I can pass the currency there. And when I call the list all, I can do exactly the same thing. Where am I? List all. There we go. Get the currency. Okay. So we're all good. So now let me just restart that service. And that's all looking good. Let's rerun. We did restart that, didn't we? Did. We're getting, oh, of course. Right. That is not my code. That is, come on, computer, give me a break. Just, all right. It's because we've got the dollar there and bash is being a pain in the bottom. All right. So here we go. So you can see now these differences. So a latte, the base price is 245 euros. When we specify that we want it in a currency of US dollars, the return price is 265. And the reason for that is because we've got 245 times 1.08, 2.45 times 1.08, and that equals 264, just to prove that I'm not doing smoke and mirrors. Well, there's obviously some decimal places there, but this is what we've done, and we've kind of done quite a bit of refactoring there. One very, very last thing that we need to do, and that is we need to update our documentation, because our documentation, our list now takes an additional method, because we've now got the ability to specify the query. So let's just add that in. So we've got our product response. Where should we put it? Do we not have a product? Oh, there we go. Product ID. So we're just going to put a product query parameter. So we're adding that so that when we generate our documentation, the Swagger will be correctly generated. And then inside of our get handler, we can update the documentation here. That returns a product response. Let me just double check in my docs. Okay, my query parameter, I'm using that Swagger. So I'm saying that list product and list single product now have this. So I've got that reference there. So when I generate my docs, make Swagger. And again, I'm just going to rerun that. Just as a kind of aside there, you can see that the currency service was called, which is cool. Localhost 1990 docs. So now inside of our docs, we should also be seeing that query string. Where is it? Seeing the query parameter there. Oh, there it is. My bad. Query parameter. So we can now got clearly there, we've got that query parameter. So it's showing that list products has an optional query parameter of currency. And that's it. We are done. So we've gone through and we've done quite a big bit of a refactoring there. And I think it was necessary. What we've ended up with is some code which is in a lot better shape. It's going to allow us to easily start to implement this bidirectional stream. And this is going to be the thing that we're looking at next. And I'm excited about this because what I'm going to show you is how you can use gRPC bidirectional streaming to create a two-way stream between two services. So what we're going to set up is we're going to set up a way of having that currency service automatically update our product API service whenever a new rate change happens. And that's going to be kind of cool. So until then, I want to thank you all for watching. I want to thank you all for persevering with this stream because, my God, it was a bit of a drawn out one. And until next time, I will bid you farewell.